So this is a very energetic audience. Thanks for the applause. How many here are startups? One. Okay.
We have big companies.
Big companies. All right. We thought about talking about startups. Maybe that's not that relevant then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what shall we talk about? Should we talk a bit about, well, maybe, I don't know if, I guess everybody has heard about Zendesk, but maybe it would still be worth for you to talk a minute or so about what Zendesk is, what you do, a little bit about the journey that got you here.
Love to. So I'm originally from Denmark, from Copenhagen, and together with my two co-founders, we built a company that did business software, specifically in customer service software. Initially, it was a very rudimentary product, but it got a lot of traction very quickly. We were so lucky to attract some angel money from Germany, and then we moved the company to California, and it's today a public company. We've been public for 3 years. So the journey to public took about 5 years in California. We are today 1,700 people. We have the run rate of $400 million something. We have 100,000 businesses around the world using Zendesk. We have, I think, more than 2,500 German businesses using our product for giving a great customer experience, a great customer service experience.
Good. Yeah, so we had an interesting conversation yesterday where you, when we spoke a bit about maybe what would you do differently today, or how does the state of SaaS things like? I think you said something along the lines of, I would never start another SaaS company. Maybe can you talk a bit about?
That's not what I said. I said SaaS is dead.
Yeah, well, that doesn't make it much better.
Well, I think it's just I think for a lot of the startups here today, and I think the point is that how we build our company, what was big differentiators for us, 8-10 years ago when we started this company, is table stakes today. We were a SaaS company. We had a beautiful interface. We were consumer grade in our user experience. We had this pay-as-you-go model. All these things that were revolutionizing back then. Today, all of these things are just table stakes. So if you want to get into the market today, you need to do something very, very differently. And I think if a lot of the startups that are here today, or in Germany in general, if they build their companies after how we build our startups 5-10 years ago, they're all going to fail. So disruption is about also disrupting what happened just 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of these companies here, they have to figure out a new way of building startups, and they have to figure out a new level of disruption. Like how we did things 5 years ago, it's simply not going to work today. And I think there is a level of urgency. There is a level of not being too comfortable for German startups that has to be there, because there's not that much success to build on. I think we will have the first IPO next week in 2 years, almost 2 years.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the last big one was, but it certainly doesn't happen every day,
no, exactly.
Or every week, or maybe not even every year that we have a several billion-dollar IPO.
Yes, I think Delivery Hero plans to go public next week,
right.
and that is the first time in a year or two.
Yeah.
So I think it's still a very the whole startup community in Europe is incredibly fragile. We have all the conferences, we have all the events and all these things, and there's definitely a bunch of good companies, but a lot of the outcomes, we haven't proven the sustainability of the European startup scene yet.
Yeah. So Zendesk moved, on that topic, Zendesk moved over across the Atlantic at a very early stage.
Yep.
You spent about a year or so in Denmark, then a couple of weeks in Boston, then 10 years or 9 years in San Francisco.
Yes.
Would you give advice to European founders that they should still do the same, or do you think that by now the European startup and venture ecosystem has matured enough that you can basically build a large company here?
Well, I think you can build great companies everywhere. I think if you want to be ambitious with your company, if you want to take it all the way, you have to find an environment that allows you to do that. 5-10 years ago when we moved, we did not have an option. There were no startup communities in Europe. There were no funding. There were no VCs. There were nothing. You remember, like, we tried to go on road shows, and that was a very that wasn't a great experience. So we didn't have a choice. I think you have choice today, but I think it's coming back to what I said before. You have to be careful as a startup founder today to not be too comfortable about like the European startup scene. There's a level coming to the US, for example. Everybody eats each other. Dog eats dog. Everywhere. And like, you can build great companies, but first and foremost, you build rich companies. It's good building, a company with great values and that can, have a little dent in the universe and all these things. But first and foremost, you build a company to make money. And like that kind of like brutality around like the mission, why you build a startup, needs to get a little bit into the DNA of the European startup scene. That it's all good that you can build cool stuff and beautiful stuff and smart stuff and all these things, but by the end of the day, it's about making money. So you have to find that stimulus. You have to be stimulated that way in the...
So I would say at the minimum, even if you decide to not move your company to the Bay Area, at least you should spend some time there to breathe some of that air and like get a feeling for that aggressiveness.
Yeah, I think it's this thing about that you wake up every morning and there's a new company trying to disrupt you. I think that having that level of paranoia in your life is not a bad thing. It's actually really healthy to realize that if you don't keep pushing it as hard as you can, somebody will come in and they will take your revenue. Because if you don't protect your revenue, somebody else will go in and take it.
Like, speaking of that disruption and like how hard it is to actually build something defensible, I mean, what do you think? I mean, maybe it's impossible to to answer the question because you would need a crystal ball. But like, if everything that has happened in the last 10 years is now table stakes and it's the bare minimum to just basically be alive, but not enough to build a defensible company and build moat around you, like what could that next thing be? I mean, everybody's talking about AI and machine learning, and I think that could be something, but do you have a view on that?
Yeah, but I think it's a good observation that how we built Zendesk originally, like we had to build the entire stack ourselves. There were no standard libraries out there for anything. We had to build our own billing system. There were no AWS. We had to get our old server park up and running. It was terrible. So it took us forever. Like, we could have built Zendesk in like 2 weeks today. It took us a year back then. So like the bar is very, very different. That also means that like you have to build a moat, to build true kind of value about your company, you have to find other defensible parts of your product. And I think, looking at hardware, hardware is much more complicated. And if you want to build a great startup, you have to do this. You have to do the hard stuff. So stuff like hardware, really solving logistics, is also another element like that is incredibly hard. Like just building software is not defensible anymore. Everybody and their mother can build software today.
Good. So I have lots of more questions, but I think we're running out of time. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Thanks, guys.
You.